Bike of Good Hope is the podcast which meets the most interesting people who serves a higher purpose and tries to make an impact for a better world. You will get to follow me as an agile project manager and an architect in how to become my own hero by making a difference for people in extreme poverty. I hope you find it as personal development, inspiring and heartwarming. Okay, so believe it or not, it is end of July and I still don't know where I'm going in the world in this autumn. I think either Ethiopia, Ghana, Botswana, or maybe even Colombia. I'm just gonna have a meeting right after this.
You have a call of duty to help. You have a call of duty when somebody says, you've done this work, you're an expert in this work, we need a project to be stood up. You can do this project. You have an obligation almost to do it. You're underground more, you're interacting more with sort of the people that you're serving, and so you have more direct and close risk. But again, you do these things because you can help, you can have an impact, or you can do something about it. People do it for different reasons. People do it for the adrenaline rush, people do it for money, people do it for notoriety, people do it to feel good about themselves. I don't know, people do it for different reasons. I'm a big believer in manifesting the life that you want. I'm a big believer in visualizing, and whether you do mood boards or whether you do
Hello and welcome to this podcast. This is Fredrik Svedbrandt. I'm the back person of this podcast, and I do this because I want to do a project to help people. I've done something similar 7 years ago when I cycled with my friend Christian in Kenya and Uganda, and then further on to South Africa. And this is really a new thing for me. So I spent 8 hours just cutting away the uninteresting and the silent parts in this interview. And I spent another 3 hours just picking out music. And I'm still not done. Like now I'm recording this little intro. And then I'm gonna do another little recording for the goodbye thing, and then I'm gonna put it all together, and hopefully in a couple of hours I'm gonna be done. It is a splendid, beautiful, sunny Swedish Stockholm day, and I'm sitting indoors. And actually, I love my time. And I hope that this podcast is going to inspire people and myself and motivate myself to really do some incredible things in my life and in this world for me and for other people. So welcome and really enjoy the show. Okay, so today we're meeting Oretha Gilbert. She is a public international law expert or a specialist who has worked in this area for over 25 years with various international organizations and governments. And she has some really good routines, really inspiring. I really think you're going to enjoy that. And she's also very skilled in project leading and agile project management. And she's going to tell me a few tips about what to do and not to do when I go abroad now. Oretha Gilbert from Washington, D.C., USA. So we're sitting here in Solna in Stockholm. And it's pretty rainy. 19 degrees maximum day.
Is it called the Swedish summer? It's I'm thinking I'm actually heading to Washington D.C. tomorrow, and it's gonna be like 36 or 38 by the time I get there.
But have you ever worked on something like hunting UFOs or?
Oh dear, Frederick. If I tell you these things, I have to kill you. I think Frederick wants to know if I'm a spy. I don't know. I mean, I've had a lot of life. What specifically would you like to know? I should kind of start with something a little bit about my background.
Okay, yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about your background?
I am actually really from the Caribbean. Came to the US as a teenager. Never really sort of felt at home there, and yeah, never really kind of felt at home in a lot of places. And so I studied, and my dad preached education. Get a good education. You can do anything you want. Get a good education. As a person who is brown-skinned and moving in a world that's different, that you have to be 2 times better than everybody else. And that you just kind of really need to excel in education. So that's where a lot of my focus and attention went.
Did you experience any
Of course.
definite racism during the times?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
In your work career?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think I've told you off this program about going to high school in the US and being made to study American history for 3 years. That's all I did. I went from 9th grade American history class to 10th grade American history, 11th to 12th grade American history class. But I'd sort of come to the US at 16, and of course they had to sort of figure out where to put me in terms of class. I kept having these tests given to me, mathematics and science and biology and whatever classes you have in high school, English. And I continuously tested out of these, and I don't know, they were sitting there looking at me and thinking, am I cheating? They took everything from me out of the room, asked me if I'm cheating. I was made to do these tests over and over again. Yeah, I think that was kind of really my first experience with racism in America. I mean, growing up in the Caribbean, everybody looked like me. We had colorism. I mean, we always do. It's always that's kind of been a colonial tactic for a long time, colorism. So we've had that in the Caribbean. But everybody looked generally like I did. When I left St. Vincent, like I said, I never really felt like I belonged in a place. I was in Canada. I didn't feel like I belonged there. Came to the US. I didn't feel like I belonged here. And I always sort of felt like I needed to just go into the world. I'd started traveling at a very young age, and so I was comfortable with that. I was comfortable doing that.
You also told me at some point that you always were like the best one in the whole school, right?
Oh dear,
like
I wouldn't say that.
You had these speeches, like year after year, you got to hold a speech over the whole school.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I was one of the top students, but you can only, I think you're talking about valedictorian. You can only be valedictorian one time. That's when you graduate after college. So yeah. I was my high school valedictorian. I wasn't my college valedictorian. So that's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
I was one of the top students, but it was a big school as well, and there were a lot of good students. And I kind of, along the way that I liked law, specifically international law, and then specifically public international law.
Okay, so what about the projects you have done using agile methods?
Well, I mean, gosh, I have done so many projects over so many years. You're talking about a 27 plus, almost 28 plus years of career work. And I think, I mean, okay, maybe now you're just talking about agile, but agile has been around for a long, long time. This is not a new concept. I mean, I know most people are sort of familiar with agile in terms of like big firms, IT and automotive companies and that kind of setting. But in the world of international development, agile has been around because of the way that you're sort of reporting or every half a year or whatever. That means that you need to sort of set up a tight framework and a schedule that very much resembles agile, because you're then sort of putting in place a set of activities. You have a team who is doing the work. You're putting in place a set of activities that you're doing over a certain amount of time so that you can meet a benchmark of saying to your donor, over this 2 quarters, or over this last quarter, here are the activities we implemented, here's what happened, here's what were the challenges, here's what were the successes, here's what we're going to do, here's what we didn't get done, and we're going to do now. So in a way, you're not calling it agile, but if you look at how international development projects are scheduled or structured, they are an agile way of working.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you kind of have like a product backlog.
Your task, you're constantly in a feedback loop with your team. You're constantly sort of checking along the way, because at the end of the day, your goal is to satisfy your client, to give them the best product.
Yeah. And what about the sprints? Like, how long are the sprints?
Well, it just depends. I mean, it depends on how you're structuring what you're doing. It depends on what your activity load is. It depends on what your topic is. And it depends on how you're sort of implementing I think generally in development work, you may say phase. In a development project, you have to have a monitoring, evaluation, and learning framework. You have to have some sort of log frame in which you're sort of spelling out activities, which is what I see as the sprints. So you have, let's say, build a school. We're going to build a school in 3 months. And in those 3 months, you're shelling out, these are the activities that we're doing. And the outcome is to have a school built.
But do you also do like experimental increments, and you don't build an experimental school and then it's like, it didn't work.
So
let's build
building a
another
school,
one.
you just...
But maybe you do that in another village, not letting the first one know that that they were in the early stage of the experiment.
With grants, you have that flexibility. You kind of need room for error. You need room to kind of screw up. And when you represent your company or your organization as somebody who is an expert in this field and can do stuff, it's kind of then hard to go back to your donor and go, oops, I kind of messed it up. So I think with a contract agreement, that's a bit kind of harder to sort of say, well, let's just kind of try this and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, we revisit or whatever. In that a grant is sort of given to you and you're given kind of carte blanche to sort of figure out how you use that money. So you have, an opportunity to kind of say, okay, let's try something. And if it doesn't work, we explain to our client or to our donor or funder, why we tried to do it that way, why it didn't work, what we learned, what were the lessons learned, how we're going to course correct, what we're going to do in the next phase or in the next tranche of what we're doing.
Can you tell me any example of projects you've done? And what was the agile approach in that?
It kind of depends on if you've got people who can actually do very sexy graphs and log frames and change maps and all these kinds of things. If you have somebody who just maybe generally it's just a basic Excel for the most part. I was in charge of sort of handling a network of organizations under the umbrella of this organization in Bangkok, a small organization in Bangkok. But they were a network that managed globally 100 different organizations all over the world that worked on human trafficking and smuggling and migration issues. One part of that particular project was how do you work with border authorities to kind of sensitize them, for them to understand. People, they don't understand sometimes what the laws are. They don't understand about basic human rights. They don't understand whether somebody's illegally crossing a border or whether somebody's being trafficked or smuggled across a border. And I think that probably for me was a good clear example of sort of using an agile framework, just because, again, it was a small organization. So there is a little bit more flexibility in terms of how you do things and what you do and course correcting and kind of screwing up a little bit and making mistakes. We started with a general plan, internal plan of training, developing training curriculum, having a sort of basic idea. We do training on basic rights. We do training on what is human trafficking, what is migrant smuggling, what does the law say, what are your rights as somebody who's been trafficked or smuggled, what can the authority do, what can they do. So we developed basic curricula and sort of started kind of as a first phase to pull together different people that worked along the border areas. Immigration officials, like I said, people who work at the borders, customs, people who interact, police, people who interacted with these people as they cross the border, whether as migrants or as
did the project become more and more successful? Did you try different educations or?
It did. I mean, it did. We sort of had consultations about the curricular for these people because this is who you're marketing it to and this is who you want to learn it. And one of the big challenges was, okay, fine, in a matter of like a month, we'll complete X amount of training for X amount of border authority, immigration, customs officials, etc. And this proved very difficult because you couldn't get people in the classroom at given times. People were working on different schedule. So we then were able to, and again, it's kind of the nature of the organization that we're working in because we had grants and we're sort of given kind of free range. So then we kind of came back to the drawing board again and figuring, okay, the first month we didn't get as many people coming to take this training. It didn't work the way we wanted it to work. How can we sort of do this differently? And so then it's sort of coming up with a different version of a plan. Instead of having people come to Bangkok, maybe we go to areas where people are. So we tried that way of kind of doing trainings. And yeah.
Okay, and did you think it improved?
It did improve. I mean, you were able to get more people if we went to specific regions, and so you could get a group of people from that particular region to sort of come out to trainings and sort of participate and be involved in it.
What brought you to work on development projects?
Like I said, my career has kind of been, very much sort of aligned with development projects and the law side of it. So I've sort of moved between both aspects of public international laws. A lot of the topics, human rights, justice issues, juvenile justice, gender justice, rule of law, governance, all of these issues are legal issues, but they're also international development issues. Again, on the sort of implementer side, as in working with NGOs and organizations that actually are given grants, are given contracts, and being the project manager. So for instance, like I said, when I first went to Afghanistan, I worked as a project manager for a women's program for vulnerable women and widows of war. That was 2005 when I first went to Afghanistan. I was in charge of the women's program, setting that whole program up, managing a team, staff, implementing that project for USAID.
What was the budget?
It was a good few $1 million. They give funding to a bunch of international non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and they implemented, and even consulting companies like DI Consult, Relief International, UNDP, and they implement different aspects of the project.
It was a national thing?
Yes, it was throughout the entire country. Yeah. Project that went on for quite some time. Philippines and Indonesia. I worked again on development projects with UNDP. These were sort of, again, specifically focused on sexual and gender-based violence issues. Like I said, this is something that's kind of run through.
And is it common that you're actually working in these different countries, or you're more sitting in the US somewhere? And
oh no, I've never worked in the US until August 2021. I've never worked in the US physically. I've never had a job in the US. When I was in college, I worked as a caddy, high school. I worked as a caddy in a golf course. Then I worked as a telemarketer, calling people up at 7 p.m. when they eat dinner and say, hey, can you buy insurance? Yeah. These are the only jobs I've ever held in the US. I've never worked in the US. I've never had a professional work in the US. I've worked outside of the US.
But the US were hiring you to be in Afghanistan doing this kind of project, or was it the
US or the UN or an organization or USAID or an NGO or something, yeah. So... But you're on the ground, you're in the field, you're living in a country, you're working in a place, and you're being there. And
so, which countries have you been involved in? You have been in Afghanistan, you have been in Asia.
In Asia, a lot of countries. India, Nepal. Let me try to sort of come around.
Thailand is in.
Thailand, Philippines, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos. God, if I start naming all the countries, I'm going to be here all day.
Yeah. But in this like missions or so, you stay like a month or?
No. You're in these places. So, for instance, with the Thailand project, I was there for 3 years, based in Bangkok, because I was doing work with Cambodia and Laos and Vietnam, and even extended to the Philippines. Like I would travel. I was physically living based in Bangkok, but like I would go to Philippines for like 3 months, or go to like Cambodia for like 6 months, or whatever, to just kind of oversee things that are going on there. But physically based office presence was in Bangkok.
Okay, so you must tell me about your routines. It takes a lot to become and accomplish what you have done. So you're now like a top advisor, public international law. You're living in Washington, D.C. I mean, that's like a super cool city in the States to live in, where president is next door. I mean, you're pretty much sharing the same garden.
Wow.
Like either you're super talented or you're just lucky. How do you become this structured person?
Wow. Well, Frederick, that's really some kind of of transmitting about the glamour of my life. I mean, I live in the president's garden. Wow. I do not live in the president's garden, anywhere close to it. I mean, you can walk from where I live to the garden in maybe about 10 minutes or so.
It's like less than a mile.
Yeah, it is, yeah. But that's neither here nor there. It's not like I could just roll up and knock on the White House and say, hey, give me some sugar or something.
But have you ever talked to the president, like one-on-one, or like in his ear in a little...
No, I have not, Frederick. I think you've been watching a lot of movies. But speaking of routine, which is what we're talking about.
Yeah, back to
before
routine.
We digress. Yeah, I don't know. I think this kind of goes back to childhood in a way. My dad was a serious disciplinarian. A lot of hard experiences. But I think I took some good things along the way. He was very much sort of structured on, having a structure, having a routine.
What is
motivated,
his profession?
Focus. Oh, my dad didn't have a profession. My dad studied up until the 8th grade only. He didn't have a big education or anything. He wanted to be like a wrestler or something. And very smart. But he had 18 siblings that he had to sort of help to take care of. He was the second of 18 siblings. Yeah.
He used like an Excel sheet to keep track of them.
I don't think Excel sheets existed back then. So I think those are some of the good things, despite the hardship of being raised by somebody like that. I think some of the things that I took away from it was how to really kind of set goals and buckle down and be disciplined and be focused and sort of shut out noises and focus on kind of what it is that you want in the longer term rather than instant gratification in the moment. I think those were some of the biggest tools that I'm most grateful for from my dad.
When do you wake up in the morning?
Oh dear. Well, at the moment in my life in Washington, D.C., I'm usually up at 3:30. Something just wakes me up. It kind of started happening in Afghanistan, actually. I do my sort of in-bed, lay-down meditation. So I listen to my meditation tracks.
For like half an hour?
Or? Just about 45 minutes or so. And then I usually do like a somatic massage on my body. So this is a lot of details, Frederick, but... So while I'm doing my meditation, I do like a somatic massage of my body. And then I sort of get up out of my bed. And then I do my sit-down practice, which is my own practice, not listening to anything. I do my sit-down meditation practice. And
so first you meditate 45 minutes and then you smear stuff on your body.
There's nothing smeared, Frederick. I'm usually just laying in the bed massaging with my hands. Okay. Nothing is being smeared.
An hour up to an hour, and then you go sit down and have another meditation.
Yes. Now I sit down and I have a meditation for like half hour. And this meditation is my own meditation, not me listening to something. It's my meditation. I set an intention for my day and I do a gratitude practice. I also have this crazy routine that I do. I think I've shared with you my 100 and something plus affirmations. I keep adding to the list. But this one I like to do in front of the mirror with myself, I guess. With myself.
Okay, so affirmations that can be like, for example, I am super good. But how long have you been doing this? Because I tend to start this kind of stuff for 3 days and then...
2016, I started doing this particular
okay.
routine, and I've built on it and I've kind of customized it and kind of depends on place and time and where I'm at and what I'm doing. But the current routine is this. Yeah, and then usually I have a crazy routine that I do where every single day, you know this about me, but I'm like a cleaner. Like I love to clean.
You clean
every day.
Like cleaning up the kitchen from last night, or?
Oh, no. I don't leave dishes in my sink at all. I mean, no, that's like a no-no in my house. I mean, there are no dirty dishes that sleeps in my sink.
You clean the neighbor's apartment then?
No, I don't rent out my services. So many people have asked me for this, but yeah. Everybody says exactly what you say. I say that there are things to be clean.
Do you also use gloves and lock the door 3 times? And do you have this kind of...
So I clean.
You do dishes?
There are no dishes, Frederick. The dishes are done in the night. There is no dirty dishes in my house.
Okay, you can't wash them twice?
No. But I do something interesting with the dishes, but this is not interesting for this conversation. But anyway.
Yeah? Like what? What do you do with the dishes?
Patrick, how is this important for this conversation about agile projects?
No, but it says something about you as a person.
Yeah, I guess.
Capable of accomplishing big things.
It says that I'm completely obsessive and compulsive. That's what it says, which I completely own. But I have this thing that I need to use all of my dishes. And so each time I use a dish, I put it on the bottom. I do that with my towels as well. I do that with everything, essentially. I put the things that I just use when I clean them on the bottom so that I use the next one on the top and then I move it down until I come back full circle.
Okay, so that's kind of practical. If you have 7 shirts, like then you would use all the shirts, not the same baby blue every day.
Yeah, so this is part of my routine. But no, generally I then go out and run. If it's winter in Washington, D.C., I don't usually run at that time. I usually do my yoga. Actually, no, I've missed my yoga. I do my yoga in between this as well. And part of this routine in the morning, I do yoga.
But now it's around 5, 6 in the morning?
Usually I'm try to get out the door for my run at 5:30, 5:45 the latest. And then come back in, shower and get ready. And pretty much I'm sitting at my desk at 7:45.
What do you see when you're sitting there working?
What do you mean, what do I see?
Like when you sit in your apartment?
Yes, I have an office. I have an office in my apartment, yes.
Yeah.
And I have a lovely view. I think Frederick is trying to sort of prove a point that I'm sort of sitting on the president's step or something. But yeah, I don't see the White House. Well, I don't see the White House.
You see the president twice a day.
Oh, he flies by more than 2 times per day, yeah. But no, I see...
you also see the Pentagon, right?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
You see the Pentagon, you see...
I see Jefferson. I see just about everything.
One of the memorials.
Jefferson, I see Washington Monument.
Same water that the president is looking at.
I don't know what water the president is looking at. I don't know what the living quarters of the White House, what you see. They might see the Potomac, so I guess, yeah, maybe it's the same water, yeah. Mm-hmm. But still, I don't live with the president. I don't go and knock at the door for sugar or anything like that. Yeah, keep that in mind, people.
Do you have a book recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends. I generally am reading like 3 or 4 books at any given time. So, for instance, the last book that I just picked up, haven't read it yet, is a book called Illiberal America. And this is a history about kind of what happened in January 6th, the storming of the Capitol that happened in January 6th in Washington, D.C.
Do you have any night routines?
I do. Well, Frederick, since I wake up so early.
Yeah, you must go to bed.
I go to bed 9:30ish. And usually at that time, I do usually my gratitude journal. I do a little bit of writing. I may read. Sometimes if I'm just kind of like whatever, I may just watch some episode of some show or something like that. But I generally try not to do that in my bed as part of my sleep hygiene because I have issues with sleeping. And so as part of sleep hygiene, I generally try to limit the things that I'm doing in my bed. Yeah.
But then it's also light outside at that time.
No, not really. When I pull the shades down. And in the US, it's not like Sweden where you guys stay bright until like 10, 11 p.m. at night.
Yeah, but you're
8, 9 or so, it's already dark and pull the shades down. It's
so 9:30, and then you do reading and stuff for an hour.
I may read. I don't read every night. I may do it, maybe read a chapter or so, but I do my journaling every day. I do my gratitude journal, and then I write some things. I may write like a short reflection about something or a story or anything. I write things.
Any affirmations or like planning the day next day or?
No, I usually do a yoga nidra when I'm getting ready to go to sleep. Usually I try to do a 25 minutes yoga nidra. And yeah, then I go off to sleep. But sleep and I has had a torturous experience. I don't really.
But when do you plan the next day?
I don't generally. I mean, I don't plan the next day. I have an idea on a Sunday evening. Sunday evening is kind of my prep evening for work week in terms of what is coming up, like what I'm doing. So Sunday evening, Sunday afternoon, evening, I have a kind of wind down routine that I do. And so I know what my week looks like. And so I kind of have that in mind.
Like pretty much your whole week. You wouldn't be spontaneous the day before.
Not my whole, I'm talking about my work life here. There are certain things that I do that are scheduled. Like I go to Pilates reformer class. That's a scheduled thing that I go to. There are concerts. It's the summer. There are free concerts, free events. There is yoga popping up here. There is performance art. There's all kinds of stuff. So usually sometimes during my day, like on my lunch hour or whatever, I'm signed up to a lot of different listservs and stuff that send out information about what's going on or whatever. And sometimes during my day, if I take a break or I'm just taking a break from work and I'm checking to see, hey, what's going on. Or people send me things and say, hey, this is going on. It might be interesting for you. I know you're interested in this or whatever. That's my social life. My work life, on Sunday, I pretty much know how the week is going to unfold. I work in a situation where it doesn't matter how the week is going to unfold. It's kind of how the minute and the day unfolds just because of the nature of my work. And so a lot of times what I think I'm doing for the week, if something happens somewhere in the world, all of that goes out the window. So, yeah.
Would you say you have a lot of friends outside of work life or like that are not your colleagues?
Yeah, in my life I do, but they're sort of scattered. Like my core tribe, what I like to call my tribe, my core people, my ride or die people. None of them are physically in Washington, D.C.
Did you meet them a long time ago?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Long time ago.
So you have like deep relations.
Some of them are childhood friends, schoolmates from college. Yeah. Yeah.
So you stay with that
group. Core group, that's my tribe. That's my people. That's the people when I say, hey, I'm in jail, come and get me. That's going to come and get me. These are the people when I say, don't ask any questions, bring me $50,000, that they'll just bring it and don't ask any questions. That's my core people. Those are my people.
And they have those
and those
50,000.
Those are the people, I don't know if they have the 50, but they'll find it. And those are the people that I would do exactly the same thing for. Yeah. But yeah, I think the nature of my life and my work, it's kind of hard. Like people who are your sort of classmates in school, when you work globally and you're not sort of stable in one place and you're living in different countries and you're moving all over the place, you tend to sort of form friend groups and you make a new tribe in these places where you live and these places where you are. And those people stay true to your life. I mean, I have friends from pretty much every country that I've worked and traveled to that I could sort of call up if I go to a country and say, hey, it's not people that you're in touch with every day or that you're in touch with regularly. Sometimes you haven't been in touch with them in a year. But I know that if I need something or if I'm coming through, I say, hey, I'm coming to Kazakhstan or whatever, you're around. So there is that. But in terms of my tribe, my core people, I have a very tight group of those people. And I don't think I've really added anybody to that group. I think socially in DC is a very sort of political and social city, but in very strange ways. It's a very transient city. You don't really find a lot of native Washingtonians living in Washington, D.C. People are coming from someplace for short term, mostly for work. And they're there for short spaces and short periods, and it's very transient. You sort of have pockets of different people that you have friendships with.
You mentioned all these countries before. Like, are you often scared in your work?
Scary situations, a lot of dangerous situations, a lot of life-threatening situations I have. I'm not usually scared. It's kind of funny. I always say to people, if you are scared, then you shouldn't be going to these places. You go into a place of fear. You shouldn't be in these countries. You shouldn't be in these spaces because they're scary places. You have to be situationally aware. You have to know what's going on security-wise. You have to be smart about what you're doing all the time, always. But I wouldn't say that I've been scared. There are times when things have happened or situations have unfolded where I was scared in that moment. But in general, being in unsafe environments, it's just you have to be smart. Like I said, sometimes I could get robbed in the middle of New York City or killed in the middle of New York City. Versus if I'm somewhere...
But you say a lot of times. Can you tell me, like, what has happened or can happen?
Oh my goodness.
like, did you get robbed or?
I've never been robbed, believe it or not. I think, after all my travels, I've never been robbed. Never, ever been robbed.
Were you ever put to prison? Kidnapped?
I was held against my will. I wouldn't say against my will. I wouldn't say I was kidnapped. They wouldn't call it that. I was in their country uninvited or something like that. They would spin it in some diplomatic, political ease. But yeah, situations where there's been bombing. I've been in situations where there's been rebel fighting at the door and you're just sort of stuck someplace and can't get out. Being in those contexts, being in a conflict, if you go into a country where there's ongoing conflict or just in a post-conflict situation where a war has just ended, some internal conflict has just ended, something has just ended, these places by their very nature are not secure. And so if you are going there with some fear, you shouldn't go to those places, really. Okay. Healthy amount of concern, healthy amount of awareness, healthy amount of fear is good.
But you know that this is dangerous.
Fearful.
Like,
of course.
What is pulling you? Is it the money or is it passion? Like, why would you put yourself in danger? Like,
you're not putting yourself in danger. You don't take unnecessary risk or you don't put yourself in unnecessary danger. You can go from working for a government where you've got all the security in the world, sometimes too much security where it stifles you. You can't do anything. You can't move. You can't interact. But you're also in situations where you might have an NGO. They don't have a big budget for security. They don't have a whole security apparatus. And then you're really more exposed and more at risk in those kinds of situations. You're underground more. You're interacting more with sort of the people that you're serving. And so you have more direct and close risk. But again, you do these things because you can help. You can have an impact or you can do something about it. People do it for different reasons. People do it for the adrenaline rush. People do it for money. People do it for notoriety. People do it to feel good about themselves. I don't know. People do it for different reasons. I'm not saying that it's some sort of pure altruistic reason.
But now you're saying, like, if someone would work for an NGO in where I'm going, and would you say that is more dangerous than where you are?
No. Danger is relative. I mean, working with an NGO in Africa, which country is it in Africa? What are we talking about?
I mean, say Tanzania.
Tanzania is a relatively safe country. But again, it doesn't mean that things can't happen. For the most part, the government respects and allow NGOs to do their work in much of Eastern Africa. There is not like some big friction like in a lot of countries where NGOs are sort of heavily censored, heavily restricted, heavily targeted by the government. In Tanzania, organizations can sort of freely move and freely work. It doesn't mean that there's not a certain amount of risk.
If the Swedish embassy or authorities don't say anything about certain risks in Tanzania, then you could be pretty much as safe as in Sweden.
I would say if you're going to a country like Tanzania, you definitely need to link up with security apparatus in that country. Yes, I mean, the embassy might be one port of call to find out what's going on, but definitely you need to get into a network with organizations that are specifically monitoring security, not only in Tanzania, but in East Africa and surrounding regions and even further out to Sahel and all these areas in Africa that are very volatile at the moment.
So you think I need to do that?
Oh, yes. Hopefully your organization is doing that. Your organization is providing.
But maybe there is no organization I'm working with. Maybe I'm doing the project on my own. Like when I was cycling through Africa, I mean, we checked with the Swedish authorities, but that's like in...
But you're not working and staying there. You're cycling through.
Yeah.
It's a different thing if you're physically sort of located there, you know. As much as we'd like to believe in the goodness of human beings, I mean, and I think for the most part, human beings are good people.
What do you think is the risk that it's a white person probably handling money?
I mean, the risk could just be somebody sees a vulnerability, whatever that is, and just kind of targets you based on that. You might think it's just you doing your normal thing. Somebody may see that as a lapse or a gap in something where it can get to you, and that's it. I mean, it could be anything. It just depends on what is kind of the thing. In some countries, robberies are very big things. In some countries, kidnapping for money or for ransom are very big things. In some countries, scams and stuff are very big things. I mean, it just depends on where you are and what's going on there.
So you talk to the Swedish authorities about this, but if they say, no, it's nothing that we have been warned about, then you still think there is this risk of me as a... Isn't it something about me being a white person being there?
I could be there and they could easily detect me as a brown person who looks exactly like them, even though they think my sister lives in the other village. They could easily detect that I'm a foreigner and target me in the same way. Educate yourself, get networked into security apparatus in those countries and understand what's going on so that you know how to take care of yourself.
What are your goals to come? You have accomplished a lot of things in your life, but do you have a bucket list?
Between my professional life and my personal life, these are two very different lives.
But do you have a career bucket list?
I don't have a career bucket list. I think my career bucket list is what is my exit plan? How do I get out of this so that I could do other things? I think I've done this for way too long. I have no political aspirations at all. None.
But it might be a good time to run for president now, right?
Yeah, it might be. I don't know. I don't know who wants that job. That's a thankless job.
But you also work with, you also have some projects going on for girls and women in Costa Rica?
Yeah, I've got 3 passion projects. The Women and Girls project is kind of based, it's not really based anywhere, essentially. It's sort of between a group of good friends that we work together. One primarily who is based in Nigeria. And then I've got another project. The Costa Rica project is about sort of responsible ownership, responsible purchasing and ownership of land in that place. COVID sort of slowed those down a bit, and there are things that I am sort of now kind of getting back into, but I guess I've been distracted for the last few months. So yeah, I haven't really done those in earnest, but yeah. But in terms of bucket list for my life, I think for me, it's just having financial freedom and physical freedom to do all the things. I've done a lot in my life. I've seen a lot. I've traveled a lot. There's not a lot that I would say oh, I haven't done.
But you don't want to get married to Sweden?
Frederick, I've been married 2 times, both of which cost me dearly, both of which were good guys, but yeah, bad experiences.
You motivate yourself, and how do you get there? Or have you been writing stuff on your mirror and repeating goals over and over and celebrating?
Big manifester. When you're on your own at 16 and you have to figure out your life, you along the way find tools to figure out how to do things. I'm a big believer in manifesting the life that you want. I'm a big believer in visualizing, and whether you do mood boards or whether you do Post-its on a mirror, whether you continuously repeat. I walk around repeating a lot of things all day. If somebody could put a microphone maybe in my throat, because sometimes I don't say them out loud, to hear the things that I'm saying all day. but yeah, no, I sort of have loops going on in my head about different things that I'm manifesting, that I'm saying, that I'm asking the universe to send to me. And I believe in it. I know it sounds kooky to a lot of people and it sounds crazy, but it's worked in my life over and over again. I've got very concrete examples of things
But
working
what
out
are
that
you
way, I'd
really
say.
going to? Because you have pretty high living standards, and you eat berries for fresh berries for
Where are you
breakfast
getting
every
this information
morning.
from, Frederick?
I know you have a good standard. So, like, what are you going to use all the money for? Like,
Patrick, where are you getting all this information from?
can you not buy everything you want already? You've also
For the
told me
most
before
part.
about your closet, and I
Oh
know
dear.
it's huge.
You know this.
Yeah.
Patrick is exposing me on the podcast.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like, do you ever would you be able to wear one dress or like one outfit every day for the whole year? Would you think?
Of course. I mean, Frederick,
You would have 365 outfits.
like I said to you, I grew up on not a lot. I mean, my dad provided a good life. Economically, we were better off than a lot of people in my village growing up. But my dad was very practical. I had a school uniform. I had a PE uniform, physical education for my gym. I had like maybe 3 or 4 dresses for church on Sunday. I'd have my school shoes and I wouldn't get another pair until there were holes on the bottom of that one. I mean, and at a certain time when I was sort of on my own at 16, I had nothing, absolutely nothing. But in a way, I think it's my reward to myself. But I can pay back to nothing and be perfectly fine.
Now you're, let's say, wealthy.
Oh dear. Boo, Frederick. I wouldn't say I'm wealthy now.
Okay, comparing to whom? Your neighbor.
I wouldn't say that I'm wealthy, Frederick, now.
Okay, but
I have a salary.
Yeah, the question is more like, what are you going to do with all the money?
All the money. Whoa. For the last few years is experiences, having experiences. That's what I'm using my money for.
Like going for travel and so.
Going for travel, seeing an
But then
amazing
staying at
concert,
expensive
going to whatever.
hotels or
If that's what I feel like, yeah, that's what I do. But yeah,
like sit in the best seat of the theater and
yeah, like that kind of stuff. I have too many things. But for me now, it's about this stage in my life. It's about experiences.
in the last days we talked a bit about doing development projects on site in a faraway country. What are the important ingredients of succeeding in that, both personally and as a part of a meaningful life and professionally?
Yeah. Like I say to you, this field of working internationally, it's very tricky. I know a lot of people who work internationally just because this is the world that I live in and move in. Many divorces, many unhappy lives, many people who stay single for long periods. It's very complicated to stitch together a quote unquote normal life. When you move and you live and you're in environments for a long period of time, you're away from home. It's also hard to kind of stay connected to networks that you've sort of grown up with. You know, people see you as the odd one out of the group. People sometimes think that, oh, you're having this glamorous life and traveling all over the place and you're sort of free and footloose and fancy free, while they're sort of sitting at home with 5 babies, 2 dogs, you know, country house in the city, all the crazy things that are troubling people. And they see you as this sort of footloose, fancy free, no responsibility, which is far from the reality. Most people don't understand as well kind of what you do in a life like that. People think there's some glamour to it. It is a lonely life, definitely. It is one of these things that we've had this joke that if you, and you see this with people, if you start your career, like say in your 20s in international development, by the time you're sort of maybe like late 30s, 40, you should get out. If you stay in it and you hit 40, it's just kind of like, yeah, it's very hard to get out. I see it with people who have worked and tried to leave and who have gone back or who have sort of had just a hard time readjusting in life. Life moves on in a way without you. And you're kind of having half a life if you're trying to maintain some kind of life in your home country. And then you're sort of trying to have a life where you're at because that's where your life is. And this is very sort of schizophrenic and very complicated. What is important is when you're in these places to really quickly find a trusted group, find a trusted community, find a trusted network. And that really needs to be a mixture of if they're foreigners working there and if they're local people. And well, there will be local people there as well. Because these are the people who will have your back. These are the people who are going to look out for you. And these are the people that you build relationships of trust with. I'm not talking about naive relationships. I'm talking about seriously trusting relationships. These are the people that when the bad guys are coming at the gate, that you hope that they will stand up there and fend them off for you.
And
I'm not talking about superficial.
But how do you build this? Because how long are you away for? Like 6 months or a year?
I mean, mostly minimum a year, sometimes 3 years, sometimes 2 years, sometimes longer, 5 years, 4 years, just depends.
So I'm going to be away for 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
Do you think I'll be able to build any kind of community around me?
I think that's kind of where your local teams come in, and I think that's kind of where the organizations that you're interacting with and the people in those organizations that you're interacting with, whether that be regional or international or local, that you kind of start building from there. But it is hard. You can't just sort of show up and say, hey, be my friend. It doesn't really work that way. You're somebody from outside. People have to trust you. People have to know you. People have to learn you. And these things take time. These are not things that just sort of...
And how do you build that?
I mean, interaction. It's you see people. If you have an issue, you have a challenge, you say, hey, I'm dealing with this. You guys have been around here working in this thing for a while. Have you seen this? How did you handle it? Or can you give me some feedback or some advice? Okay. Yeah.
So you interact with them often and show a bit of trust and...
Well, relationship building takes many forms. It just depends on the people.
But do you bake a cake?
If they like cake, maybe you can bake a cake. I mean, hey.
Or do you invite them to events? Do you try to make them come to the local pub with them? Or
yeah, it really depends.
New relationships in Sweden, I would say it's very hard. Like
it's everywhere for adults.
You have your school friends since 20 years back. But other than that, it's like it's difficult to become friends with people like colleagues. Maybe you start becoming good friends with colleagues after a year. I mean, probably
that's everywhere, but that's everywhere.
Always on the person also, but
that's not unique to Sweden. That's everywhere. As you get older, it's harder to build friendship groups, but you're not looking for friends. You're looking for a trusted group. A tribe doesn't necessarily have to be your friends. A tribe could be colleagues who say, hey, I'll send you security information. A tribe doesn't have to be somebody that you sit down and eat a meal with. A tribe, I mean, you're not looking for friends. You're there in a professional setting. It's professional relationships primarily.
Okay, so you're not looking for like friends. Having group friends. You're looking for...
You're looking for a professional network, a support network.
Okay.
And those may branch off into actual genuine friendships, but you're not there looking for friends. You're there in a professional setting, and that's what it is first and foremost. Anytime you're outside of your country and you're there in a work setting, it's a professional setting. I've seen many people get into trouble, lose their jobs, get sent home because they forget this distinction. That there's a party doesn't mean it's a party. It's a professional party.
You know about my project. I'm going to go somewhere in this big continent of Africa. Still not decided yet where. And if you could give me like a few advices, let's say 5 advices on how to succeed.
Be prepared before you go, because you have such a short time on the ground. I would say be prepared as much as you can in terms of project, contacts, having a clear understanding of where you're going and already have some sort of connection on the ground, having a framework and an understanding, or maybe 2 or 3 versions of that, of possibility, how you're going to approach what you're doing based on what you know, based on what you find out in your research, based on what you find out in your outreach and your contacts. And in a flexible way where you can tweak it and you can sort of, adjust it accordingly, because sitting here and making connections and making contact is one thing. Being on the ground and seeing the reality is another thing. But definitely be prepared before you go in every way. Understand the culture, understand the security situation, understand the politics, understand the corruption level, understand how the sausage gets made in those places. Have a good grounding in what you're getting into, and just don't show up naively. Just get online and check their daily newspapers, or get online and check what's happening in those countries in the day. I mean, that's a real life snapshot of what's happening. I think once you have settled on a place that you're going, do your research, do your homework, understand the lay of the land in those places, in all the different aspects, like I said.
So get an understanding about the project for that country, region, and build this contact network, the community, tribe.
Once you're in a country, people get excited. You show up to a place and you just want to do. And I've had this experience in several of my projects where you show up and you're just ready to go. And communities are structured culturally differently. There are some cultures and communities that are very sort of patriarchal. There are some traditional practices where male dominates quite a lot. There's all kinds of cultural nuances and traditions and customary practices that, like I said, you need to sort of have a grounding and an understanding of. So I'll give you a quick example. When I showed up in Afghanistan in 2005 on that USAID project and went out to the east in Nangarhar in Jalalabad in Talokan to do this project, this alternative livelihoods project, showed up bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, money was flowing everywhere, you could do whatever you wanted. And I'm going to do this alternative livelihoods project for war widows and vulnerable women, blah, 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 blah. And I've got my idea and my plan, and yeah, boom. Well, Afghanistan, by its nature, is a very patriarchal society. It's a very restrictive and conservative culture. You can't just show up and say to women, hey, come down to this community center, we're going to do this project. You need community permission. You need the leaders and the elders in the community to give you permission. Women can't just walk out from their house and go anywhere. They need a male escort, whether that's a son, a brother, a husband, or somebody. You can't just walk out of your house and go, I'm going down to the street. Yeah, once I sort of met with the village and meet with the elders and the community leaders and the religious people, and I drank a lot of tea, and I sat down, drank a lot of dirty tea that gave me a lot of diarrhea because, hey, people live in a different way. And you sit there and you spend about an hour asking, how's the mother, how's the father, how's the goats, you ask about everything, and you learn the way of behaving until people trust you. But it took a while. It took a long, long time, several months, where people say, okay, fine, this makes sense. And then you have to try to sell them. Like I'm selling them and saying, hey, I'm doing microfinancing and microcredit with sort of livelihoods that these women already do. So women who crochet or women who make quilts, how do we monetize those things? Women who make like yogurt or do kitchen gardens, they have like little gardens where they plant vegetables. How do we market those? And you have to make the men in the family convinced that, hey, this is going to economically empower these women. This is going to make your situation better if they're bringing in some kind of money. So it really is a process where me going and saying I'm doing project for women, yeah, great on me. But if women are in a framework and a structure where men are in control, it doesn't matter what I say. I can't get to those women without getting to the men and bringing the men along.
How would you do that differently today? Like, what could you have done?
Well, I do that differently, like I say, by having a good understanding of the context on the ground.
Yeah.
But as well, building those relationships. The most important thing is not to sort of run in there and go like, boom, let's start.
So you would, like for me, for instance, I'm going to be there for 4 months. Mm-hmm. Like that's the active period of the project. And then would you do like, okay, 2, 3, 4 weeks?
But I would say do a good at least 2 weeks of kind of talking to people. If you've identified a village, sort of going out and kind of introducing yourself and understanding who is working where, who's doing what, talking to people, explaining to them what you're going to do, and not just sort of show up and go like, here we go, let's start doing this now. I would say definitely it's worth the investment. People as well, you want people to be ownership of things that are going on in their spaces, in their communities. You want people to take ownership for them. You want people to feel like stakeholders in these things. Okay. And if you are not engaging with them and they don't feel like a partner with you, it is really from day one, that relationship that you build with stakeholders and that buy-in is to have that conversation with them about sustainability. That I might be bringing X amount of resources to this, but what's going to happen when that resource is gone? How do you guys plan to sort of take this forward? What's the plan? Are you going to raise funds? Are you going to do outreach? Or you can sort of start some kind of planning of fundraising, whether that's through donor support or through individual funds or sponsorships or whatever, but is to work with them from day one, to be thinking about this, that, hey, I'm not going to be here for a very long time. You guys are going to have to take this over and keep it going and maintain it. And so that needs to be front and foremost in every conversation.
Right. Thank you so much.
I wish you well. I wish you luck in this project that you're doing. I hope that everything goes according to plan. It likely won't, but that's life. That's kind of part of the adventure and part of the fun. Yeah, and I guess I'll be following along and watching to see how it all goes. So good luck.
All right, thank you so much for staying all the way until the end. I'm gonna sit here now and I'm gonna record this pretty fast because the air is running out. I'm sitting under the cover in my bed recording this to have the least sound possible around me. It has been really fun to record this. It has been really great to get to know Oretha a bit and to interview her for this. I think she has a very interesting life, and now I spent so many hours, around 10, 12, it's going to be 12 hours when I'm done with this, and hopefully only 12 hours for this episode. And I've learned a lot, and it has been fun. But it is a sunny day outside, and I'm probably going out soon for a coffee in the afternoon. Okay, and please join for the next episodes. I'm gonna have I have at least 3 people that I want to interview for now, and also I want to tell about my cycling 7 years ago through half of Africa, and I also want to tell about the plan of this project coming up, which I'm about to go on for almost a half a year. And you can all follow it through this podcast, but it also has a website, bikeofgoodhope.com. So bikeofgoodhope.com, and please also put in some money for the projects I do. These will really come to help a lot of children that I'm actually about to help. So this is some passion for me, and I really hope we can do this together, and maybe one day I'll meet you and we can talk about what experience you had listening to this. Thank you so much. Okay, bye.